All right, so today we're gonna work on the front suspension. We have the rear suspension done, as you saw in the last video, so that's working out. So now we're gonna move to the front. So I've removed the front struts. Pretty straightforward process, so I wasn't gonna show that. Basically unbolt the 3 bolts at the top, unbolt the 2 bolts at the bottom where it attaches to the ball joint, and they come right out, and then pull the strut housings out of them. So then we'll get started with removing the actual strut tube from the spindle. Alright, so this is the math for the front suspension for the Airlift Performance struts. So we're looking at the front. Basically you have your strut layout here with your strut top here, the airbag here, your damper and strut housing here that's been pressed in to an adapter which is pressed into the spindle housing. All that's welded together, and then the spindle with a gusset here just to stiffen it up. The X dimension that I'll refer to is from the strut top to the point where the bottom of the strut housing attaches to the lower spindle sort of receiver area. And so what I've done is tried to set up the suspension using the Airlift 75563 universal air strut kit. The stock strut length bottom is about 16.5 inches, and the geometry for the front and the rear is actually very, very similar. I use the same air strut kit on the front and rear. So starting with mid-stroke, and this is for a 1974 Datsun 260Z. So mid-stroke on the strut length is 17 inches, which gives me a fender height of about 26 inches to the fender lip. This air strut has a 6-inch range of travel. So at max stroke, I get 20 inches of strut length and a fender height of 28 inches, and then at the minimum stroke, when it's all the way down, a strut length of 14 inches and about 23 inches fender lip, and all that gets me to about 2.5 to 3 inches clearance on the front RocketBunny air dam when it's all the way down. I could have used a shorter strut housing in the front to get it lower, but I didn't want to compromise ride quality, because on the shorter strut housings, so I think it's a 75564, they give about 2 inches less of range, so I only have about 1 inch of travel at ride height, and I didn't want to have any bottoming out issues with the strut. So going with the longer struts, it sits pretty low. I can get the frame rail basically, off the ground by about 1.5 inches when it's all the way down. So sits pretty good, looks pretty good. So I'm gonna go with it there, but all this worked out pretty well. So if you're interested in doing this, here's sort of the dimensions of the strut and everything and what I use to do it. These are our spindles and strut tubes. So what we're gonna do is we're actually gonna, if I can show you here, we're gonna cut the spindle off here, and then we're actually gonna remove the part that's pressed into the spindle. So the new adapters will get pressed back in there and then welded back in place, so we have a nice strong joint and everything's solid. So next part is we're going to have to remove this weld in here so that we can get this inner strut tube out so that we can press in a new piece. So that might be a bit of a challenge. Alright everybody, welcome back to GP Designs Garage. I know it's been a while since the last episode. Had some parts at the machine shop, getting those made for the front suspension. So I've been waiting for that to come back from the machine shop because I want to get all the suspension done before I move on to anything else. So basically what we did is had some adapters made for the front spindles, had the original struts bored out of the front spindles. They were actually pretty difficult to get out. The rear ones were pretty easy. The front ones were, not sure what they used to hold all that in there, but they were pretty difficult to get out. So anyways, got the adapters made, got the spindles bored, so those are ready to go together. Just kind of a quick look at what it'll look like. Got the spindle, the adapter, the Airlift Performance strut, and then you got the airbag. Sit on top of it like that, and that'll all go in the front of the car. So I'll go through the the math on it to show you the setup and how high the car sits and everything like that, and then we'll go through putting it together and installing the car, and hopefully in a video or two we'll have the car fully on air and going up and down. And while I was waiting on the parts from the machine shop, did a little work on the Ferrari 206 there, working on getting the Dino motor put in it and all mounted up. So I've been doing that with my father-in-law over the last few weeks while we're waiting on the machine shop to finish the Datsun spindle parts. So anyways, keep watching, and let me know if you have any questions. Alright, so we got the struts welded up with the adapters to the spindles. So you can see here, got the bags on, struts welded to the adapters, adapters welded to the spindles. So those are all done. I'll probably put some gussets in here between the spindle and the adapter just to strengthen it up a little bit and make sure they're solid. And then we'll get them painted and get them put on the car, and then we'll make it go up and down. Alright, so we got the strut assemblies completed and painted. I got them installed in the car. So I'll show you what we got so far. So we have the Airlift Performance strut assembly installed with some temporary air lines just for testing to set it up. I also have just test fitting the S12+8 calipers for vented rotors. They have these for both vented and solid rotors, but I'm going to go with the vented rotors. And these have the differential bore pistons in them. So I'm going to go with that, not going with the two larger bores. I kind of like the differential bore, and this will also help with my bias front to rear. So we'll talk about that in a later video, but here they are installed. You can see up top, mounted through the top. I had to change the bolt spacing a little bit from the stock, but it generally basically fits in the stock location. So we'll get it connected up with some air and get the wheels on and see what it does.